What's up guys, it's Numbskull here, and today I've got another trip report for you that's not my own, but was actually submitted to me by a friend to read on the channel. Same friend as the last one. He wanted to share this experience with a substance a lot of people laugh at or don't really take seriously. Nutmeg. Now, before I get into reading this, I want to say this is exactly what he wrote out for me. It's detailed, believable, and honestly pretty wild. So let's get into it. Now, I'd heard about nutmeg being psychoactive for years, but always brushed it off as sort of some old wives' tale. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to try it out for myself. Wasn't reckless about it. I did my research and measured out about 15 grams, and it seemed like a perfect place to start. I put it all into capsules so I didn't have to taste it because raw nutmeg by the spoon is disgusting and would probably have made me puke. I took the dose in the afternoon on an empty stomach, sometime around 2:30 p.m. if I had to estimate. What you've got to know about nutmeg is it's insanely slow to kick in. Nothing happens for hours. It's not like weed or alcohol where there's like this quick buzz that comes on. For the first 4 hours of this experience, I honestly thought it wasn't working and wasn't going to work at all. But then things started creeping in. First, it was the dry mouth. My tongue felt like sandpaper, and no matter how much water I drank, did not fix it. Next came this heavy warmth, like I was wrapped up in a weighted blanket. Not painful, just really noticeable. By the 5 or 6 hour mark, I realized I was high. There wasn't some dramatic come up like you get with other drugs, no rush, no sudden flip of the switch. It was more like realizing I'd been slowly sinking into quicksand all evening, and suddenly my chin was under the surface. My thoughts didn't stop, but they thickened, like they were moving through syrup. I'd latch onto an idea and start spinning it around in my head, and then halfway through forget what I was even thinking about. Normally that kind of thing annoys me, but in this state, I didn't care. I just let go of the leash and floated with it. The headspace was closest to being stoned if I could compare it to anything, but it was a lot heavier. If weed is a fluffy cloud, nutmeg was a weighted blanket. Sounds were muffled, like I was listening through a thin wall. My body felt anchored to the couch, almost glued down. Some severe couch lock, I'm talking. I couldn't focus on anything for long. Like, I'd glance at the TV, then at my phone, then just stare at a blank wall. None of it stuck, however. Visually, it wasn't psychedelic like LSD or mushrooms. It was subtle, but there were definite changes. Lights all had this strange glow to them, like a faint halo around everything. Streetlights outside, headlights passing by, even the tiny LED on my phone charger. They all had soft edges and seemed to pulse in and out, almost like they were alive. At one point, I got up to use the bathroom and flicked the light on, and it hit me way too hard. The brightness didn't just fill the room, it took over the room. It pressed down on me like the light had weight, and I actually squinted and backed out for a second before trying again. This was a standout moment, almost overwhelming in its simplicity. Now the music. That was one of my favorite parts. I mean, just incredible in a very specific way. Weed usually sharpens music for me, makes it pop, makes me hear every little detail. Nutmeg didn't do that. It didn't make the sound sharper, it made it warmer, fuzzier, like the sound itself had been wrapped in a thick blanket. I put on some chill lo-fi beats and it felt like the bass and reverb were hugging me. I wasn't moving to it, wasn't nodding my head, wasn't tapping my foot. I just melted into the couch, staring at nothing, completely absorbed in the layers. It wasn't fun the way weed music sessions are, but it was immersive, like being submerged in it rather than dancing with it. But the body load, man, I will say that was rough. My stomach felt twisted up, not like a sharp pain, but like a constant knot. Waves of nausea rolled through me at random, enough to make me sit still and breathe slowly just to ride them out. I didn't actually throw up, but I came very close a couple of times. On top of that, my skin itched constantly, especially my arms and face. I'd scratch one spot, and then another would flare up. It wasn't agonizing, but it was always there, like background static in my body. Very annoying. Time distortion was heavy. This wasn't time feels slow in the usual stoner sense. It was like time stretched and bent. I'd zone out for what felt like a couple of minutes, blink, and suddenly an hour had passed. Then other times I'd be convinced hours had gone by, only to check my phone and see it had only been 10 minutes. It made the night feel endless, like I was living in loops. I'd sink into these half-dream states, slipping just barely into another reality, and then snap back to the living room with no idea how long I'd been gone. Eating was a disaster. I tried, but chewing was the most mechanical, uncomfortable thing possible. My mouth was dry as a desert, and every bite tasted like cardboard. It wasn't even the food that tasted bad, it tasted like nothing. Just texture with no reward. I gave up and stuck to sipping water, which at least helped cut the dryness a little bit, I guess. At some point in the middle of the night, I tried scrolling on my phone. Bad idea. The screen was way too bright, and the glow around it pulsed in this distracting way that made it impossible to focus. Reading even short sentences felt like decoding a foreign language, like some real Enigma type shit. Words swam on the screen, and by the time I reached the end of a sentence, I'd forgotten the beginning. I gave up quick and set it down. The dreams, or what felt like dreams, were the strangest part. When I finally gave up on being upright and laid down, my bad, I didn't really sleep. I drifted in and out of these surreal states where my eyes were closed but I was still aware. Vivid, strange dreamscapes unfolded in my mind. Deserts with neon skies, buildings melting into one another, random strangers from my past popping up and talking nonsense. None of it was scary, but none of it made any sense either. It was less like dreaming and more like slipping between parallel worlds with no control over where I landed. I'd wake up for a second, roll over, close my eyes, and snap into another bizarre vignette. When morning hit, I was still very high. Not in a pleasant way either. My eyes were bloodshot, my head felt stuffed with cotton, and my body was a brick. Even moving around the house felt like I was wading through molasses. Tried to make coffee, and it was like every step of the process, filling the pot, scooping the grounds, pressing the button. It took 5 times as much effort as normal. That sluggishness stuck around most of the day. Around noon, I realized I was still not quite sober. I wasn't tripping, but I was fogged out, slow, detached. The hangover wasn't sharp pain, it was weight. Everything took more energy than it should have. Even into the afternoon, my brain was wrapped in a haze. Looking back, Nutmeg is undeniably real. It's not placebo, it's not hype. It changes your consciousness in a way that's impossible to miss. It's also not fun, however. It's heavy, awkward, and honestly quite unforgiving. The glowing lights, the syrupy thought process, warped time loops, and dreamlike visuals were unique and memorable. But the nausea, the itchiness, the dry mouth, the brain fog, those were just as real and just as defining. Would I do it again? Maybe someday, but not anytime soon. It's not a party drug, it's not a social thing, and it's not fun in the way people usually mean. It's an ordeal, to put it simply. Something you go through to see what's on the other side. And once you've seen it, you don't forget it. Nutmeg is strange, it's heavy, and it leaves a mark. Well, guys, that was the report. He definitely had quite the time with something most people consider a simple kitchen spice, didn't he? I enjoyed reading it, and I hope you guys enjoyed hearing it. As always, I hope you all enjoyed. Please consider liking and subscribing, and hit that bell if you don't want to miss any new content. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace!